In this video tutorial, I'm going to share a few secrets with you on how to create a really powerful brand strapline, otherwise known as company motto or slogan, those few words that sit underneath the brand, the logo, that encapsulate what you do and how you do it. It's both an art and a science. There are rules or guidelines that can really help if you know them. And so I'm going to run through what those rules are, and then I'm going to give you some examples of how they've been used very effectively in the world of public policy, in B2C and big consumer brands, before moving on to B2B and then professional services and how it could help you and your business, whether you run an investment fund or a professional services company or an advisory firm. So keep watching. I say an art and a science. For the longest time, brand messaging has been an art. It's been the purview of creatives in advertising agencies, acting more or less intuitively. But over recent decades, a lot of work has been done, a lot of research and academic work to find out what are the golden rules of really influencing people and changing behaviors. And actually, during the COVID era, this was very revealing, because these rules were adopted by public policymakers, particularly in the UK, which really led the way in terms of public messaging. And the interesting thing about those messages was that there was no underlying product. So in the corporate world, it's quite difficult to work out what the secret of your success is, whether it's, if you're Coca-Cola, are you doing well because you've got a good marketing campaign or because you've got a good product? It's difficult to know. Whereas with public policy and something like COVID measures, the message was the product. So it's a very pure test case. But let's look at the rules as they are. The first one is a strapline should have 3 words. You can break that rule, it's a guideline, but I think you've got to have a really good reason to break it, because so many of the best are 3-word straplines. The second rule is to be emotive. You've got to speak directly to people if you want to be emotive, using the word you or us. That's very powerful. You can use we and I, but you and us is great. Or a statement that really gets people moving, gets people going, addresses them directly. So be emotive and be direct. And the third one, I'm going to call be inclusive. If you can convey the impression that by adopting whatever product, service or idea you're selling, the consumer isn't being purely selfish, but is actually being a good person, a community spirited, then that's much more powerful. Economists think that people are just selfish optimizers, but marketeers are much cleverer than that. They know instinctively that people aren't purely selfish. They want to feel like they're good people. And so if your brand strapline can have some sense of community within it, it'll be all the more powerful. So in Britain in the COVID era, there were a number of effectively straplines, public policy straplines, which were used to great effect. And you'll probably remember most of them because they were so effective, so memorable, even several years later. We all still know them. So in the UK, we had hands, face, space. And then we had stay at home, the rule of 6, protect the NHS. And then that was updated. So protect the NHS is good. So let's look at that one. It's the rule of 3. It's community spirited, and it's an instruction. It's a command. It speaks directly to you. So that fulfills all 3 of our guidelines. But it was actually improved quite quickly from protect the NHS to save our NHS, and our is much more powerful than the. That you can use the in straplines, but use it carefully. It needs to relate to something very specific and not abstract, whereas our is so much more inclusive. Save is better than protect, of course, because it's, again, that has more of a community spirit, but it's also more immediate, more urgent. In marketing terms, it conveys a sense of scarcity, and that's really great. And then we had control the virus. Did I say stay at home? Then there was the more negative one, let it rip. We had that in the UK, which was a way of discrediting people who are advocating for a different approach to the situation. Now, by the way, I'm not making a moral judgment on all of this. In fact, I will. I think the use of these rules in that situation was very manipulative. But I'm just sharing knowledge, and knowledge can be used for good and evil. And so I'm sharing it with you so you can use it in the free market and to help grow your business. And that's got to be all to the good. And of course, there's another policymaker that uses the rule of 3 to devastating effect, and that's Donald Trump. He intuitively understands, in a way that the COVID policy was done kind of more systematically, that there are rules to effectively to straplines, to slogans. So build the wall, make America great, drain the swamp. They're all simple, they're all emotive, and they're all three words, more or less. And now I'm going to give you some examples from consumer brands, which you will well know. Nike, just do it. I mean, that's my favorite of all time. That's the best. It's 3 words, again. It's simple. It's direct. You just can't beat that. McDonald's, very similarly. I'm loving it. It's kind of inclusive because the I there is like, it's like the universal I. So simple. You really can't beat that. Whereas if you take something like a McDonald's competitor, Wendy's, they've got "Where's the beef?" So that's, again, I mean, they're all using the 3. The advertisers have always known that the 3 works. But "Where's the beef?" doesn't actually work that well. And one reason for that is that it's asking a question. Never ask a question, not in a strapline. Why create unnecessary uncertainty? And what's the answer? A good barrister never asks a question that they don't know the answer to. So where's the beef? I don't care. Supermarkets, Walmart, always low prices. That's great. You can't beat that. And so it's a shame that they changed it. I think they changed it to save money, live better, which is nowhere near as strong. You might think, well, what's wrong with 4 words or 5 words or 2 words? Nothing, but 3 words is better. In the UK, we've got a big supermarket, Tesco's. Every little helps. That's very good. It's 3 words. It's true. That also helps. If what you're saying is fundamentally true, every little does help, then that helps. If you can get your brand name, your company name, into your strapline, bonus points for you. So Asda is another supermarket. It's Asdaby. Little pun there, works quite nicely. Lidl does a similar thing. Big on quality, little on price. So it's 6 words, but it still has the meter, it still has the rhythm of the rule of 3, and they get little in there. Let's look at a couple more. Red Bull. Red Bull's very interesting. It's a little bit like COVID in a way, because Red Bull had a very generic product, this caffeinated, sugary pop drink, but sold very successfully. And I think people weren't buying the drink. They were buying the strapline, which gives you wings. Red Bull gives you wings. Everyone knows that. Interestingly enough, I believe they were sued because it doesn't actually give you wings. But does it matter? They did fantastically. John Lewis is an upmarket brand in the UK, supermarket brand, never knowingly undersold. So 3 words, but very strange words for a strapline. One of my earliest memories, this is absolutely true, is seeing that on my mother's shopping bag and not knowing what it meant. And I'll give you a corollary to that. I was driving along with my own children when they were very young, toddlers. They could barely speak and had the radio on low. And one of my children heard the McDonald's whistle. And he said, McDonald's. If your toddler gets it, you're on the right track. JD Sports, King of Trainers, North Face, Never Stop Exploring. It goes on and on. If you've got a good consumer brand, the chances are you've got a 3-word, emotive, inclusive strapline. They're only guidelines, but they work. You've got to have a reason to break the guidelines. The luxury market, Louis Vuitton, which is now LV. Live the truth. That's great. That's really good. L'Oreal, you're worth it. That's iconic. Let's move on to the corporate tech world. IBM. You should know this because they were in a monopoly for so many years. Everyone should know the IBM strapline, but not many people do. In fact, it was a Trivial Pursuit question back in the 80s. IBM strapline is think, you'd think you can't get much simpler than that, and that's true, but the name of the game isn't necessarily simplicity, and a 1-word strapline isn't effective. So think, so what? Where's the why? By the way, why is the question you should always ask yourself. Why? Not how or where or when or who, but why. So think, okay, what about? Which is effectively a why question. Apple. I'm a big fan of Apple, big fan of Steve Jobs, but I'm not a fan of its strapline, which is think different. Why don't I like that? Well, one, it's obviously a play on IBM, and you don't want to really reference your competitor. It's just chippy. And particularly if your competitor's strapline isn't that strong. You're just adding to something that's relatively weak. It's 2 words. It doesn't work. Think different. Okay. It's grammatically incorrect as well, and that irritates me. Meta. So we're getting a little bit more into the modern tech scene now. Metas is connection is evolving, and so are we. So it blows the rule of 3 out of the water. I don't think this works very well. It does the opposite of being inclusive, because that we doesn't. I don't feel like I'm included in that we. I think they're just talking about themselves. So that doesn't really work. It's long. There's no real why. LinkedIn, connect to opportunity. That ticks a lot of boxes. Spotify. Big fan of Spotify, but not so much their approach to marketing. They've got listening is everything, music for everyone. It feels to me like they've come up with 2 straplines and couldn't decide between them, and so they've used them both. I would have said music is everything. That would have been better. There's a Tom Cruise movie. His lowest grossing movie, I believe, was called Live, Die, Repeat, The Edge of Tomorrow. And I didn't see that movie along with a lot of people for a long time. And when I did, I was amazed how good it was. And I realised the reason I didn't go to see it is that, well, they couldn't decide on a title. You know, it's amazing how much value can be destroyed in a few words. In a few words too many. Right, let's look at B2B now and professional services, where the rubber hits the road for most of us, I think. This is a different thing, right, from consumer brands, because it's not on shopping bags and there's no jingle to go with it. And you're dealing with a sophisticated audience. But actually, in essence, the game is the same. And the reason for that is that people are the same. Doesn't matter how smart they are. They respond to the same techniques. And so if you're not going to abide by the guidelines, which were developed intuitively, but then were crystallized by academics, then you've got to have a reason. So let's have a look at those. I'm going to start with the big 4 consultancies. EY, building a better working world. So it's long, but I like it. It's quite clever, I think. It does a couple of things. It's like building a better a world that works better, but also a world that you work in. Building a better working world. I quite like that. Building, it's constructive. Better, it's positive. It works. It feels inclusive, doesn't it? Deloitte, always one step ahead. So 4 words, breaks the rule of 3. Not inclusive at all. In fact, it's the opposite of speaking directly to you. They're just speaking about themselves. So this doesn't work for me. It's a little bit arrogant. It's an outrageous claim, really. Not quite as bad as they invented the question mark, but you're always one step ahead. No, good for you, I suppose. PwC, building trust for today and tomorrow. So it's long, it's wordy, and a bit pointless. I mean, for today and tomorrow? Why not just now? And building trust. You know, you don't actually build trust. I know people say you build trust, but you don't. And I know that sounds pedantic, but the thing with things like brand messaging is you're not just dealing with the conscious mind, you're dealing with the unconscious. And your unconscious is a lot smarter than you are, and it will pick up on things like that. And you build walls, but you earn trust. You have to be alive to things like that. You have to be pedantic in this process. So I don't like that. KPMG, it's time for clarity. That doesn't tick any of our boxes. And it's also like, what does it mean? I've got no idea. That's probably a case of people internally thinking that something's a really big deal, but everyone in the outside world not having a clue. Accenture, high performance delivered. Does the job. Boston Consulting Group, bold ideas, exponential impact. So they've gone to 4 as well. Very few of these abide by the rules that the consumer industry have known for a long time. Bold ideas, exponential impact. Why exponential? I mean, I feel like they put that in there just to sound clever. I would have put bold ideas, big impact. I think that would have had a bigger impact. Goldman Sachs, progress is everyone's business. I like that. That's great. It's 4, not 3. It's very inclusive, and it's true. It says something that resonates with me. It feels profoundly true. And if you've got something that good, don't worry about the rest of the rules. That's great. Bank of America, bank of opportunity. Westpac, making the most of life. 5 words. And look, you're a bank. RBS, where people matter. Well, if you know anything about RBS, you do need some alignment with what you say and what you do, I think. You can't be too cynical. Moody's, empowering our customers to make better, faster decisions. Well, by the time they've read your strapline, they've wasted at least 12 seconds. Okay, let's move on to asset management now. Fidelity, turn here. What does that mean? State Street, passionate about our clients' success. Too long. I mean, sure, it's a nice sentiment, but that feels like the start of a strapline building process, not the end of it. Also, passionate doesn't mean what most corporate communications teams thinks it means if you look it up in the dictionary. MetLife, I can do this. That's one that sounds like it should work. You know, it's a bit like just do it, but it doesn't work anywhere near as well. I don't think it works at all, actually. I can do this. Why? Well, it's not 3 words. The I is disembodied somehow. I don't feel like it's inclusive. And do what? The this is disembodied as well. It's just random. BlackRock, investing for a new world. So they all break all the rules. They all feel like they have to say too much. Investing for a new world. That doesn't work. I think one of the reasons is my unconscious doesn't like that one, because what new world? I mean, I know it's colloquial, but there is only one world. Does my firm, Linear B, walk the walk? Well, in our client work, we do, but not always. Sometimes we break the rules. So for a buyout firm called Alagmore, we did their branding, and their strapline is grow more, build more, be more, Alagmore. So I think that's really strong. It breaks several of the rules, but it works. And it works because it's simple, it's direct, it's inclusive, and it's aspirational, and it's positive, and it also plays on their name as well. So that's that bonus point, the little bonus point. And our own company, Linear B Group, your expertise scaled, which is what we're trying to do with videos like this. So I hope that was useful. See you next time.